We have a very special guest here today on Americana Country WSGI. It is none other than Charles Samuel Bush. You might know him as Sam. How you doing, Sam?
You put the Charles in there.
I did.
Well, Charlie was my dad.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he was Charles T. I'm Charles S. So.
There you go. Well, distinctions, it makes all the difference in the world.
Well, thankfully, he said, nope. My mother wanted to name me Charles T. Jr. He said, I don't want his name to be Junior all his life. Thank you, Charlie.
There you go. Now, your dad was a musician.
A farmer that played music.
A farmer that played music. One of your songs on your Storyman CD talks about that, Bowling Green, right?
It does, yeah. John Randall Stewart and I wrote that tune, and it actually started with John Randall coming over at the house, and he had most of the first verse written, which was sort of about both my parents, right? He knew my parents, and Lynn, my wife, was walking by, and I think he teared us both up. I said, "Well, we got to finish this." And John Randall, we call him Randy. Randy knew my dad, and he knew how much he loved fiddle playing. He said, "Well, I was just thinking about fiddling, And it was also the kind of thing. We're not the first to do it. Others have, where you sort of. When you take an instrumental break, then we would refer to old fiddle tunes within the song, because we mentioned that my dad loved Soldier's Joy, the old fiddle tune Soldier's Joy.
And saw in the Wagner.
And the Wagner, the Tennessee Wagner was his favorite tune in life. But the Soldier's Joy, he would always, if anybody be playing it, we'd be listening to radio or anything, somebody would go, Soldier's Joy, and my dad would go, Soldier's Joy, payday in the Army. That was the only Soldier's Joy. So that's why we say he liked to play Soldier's Joy. He called it payday in the Army. And that's, so really just I never thought we'd write a song where you just sort of keep repeating the word Bowling Green in the chorus, but that felt right.
Yeah, and, we know it worked for the Everly Brothers, though.
Sure did.
A few years ago. A few years ago, yeah. Well, Sam, you've been around for a while. I won't say how old you are, but you're
65.
I was going to say a couple of years older than me. But I met you way back in the early 70s when you were just starting this little band called Newgrass Revival. Give us the short story of how you got to the first incarnation of Newgrass Revival. What were your influences up to that time?
Well, influences, we were influenced by everyone. As far as the progressive bluegrassers like the Osborne Brothers, Jim and Jesse, Country Gentlemen, the Dillards. But, within the four of us, we were listening to many different things, and I was a fan of, I've always been a fan of people like Eric Clapton and John, and the guitar players I tend to gravitate toward, John McLaughlin. And so we would take those influences and go with it. Now, we came from a band, the four members of Newgrass Revival. We were part of a five-piece group, the Bluegrass Alliance, and we came to a falling out with our fiddle player, and come to find out he owned the name of the band. So, so we just said, well, let's put it this way: we all quit. So we started Newgrass Revival, and one of the reasons we called it that was because we didn't think we were inventing a new kind of bluegrass. We thought that had already been done, and it had. And so we were sort of reviving styles that influenced us. And I'll tell you it's no coincidence that on our very first album we did Great Balls of Fire and a bluegrass version. Well, we got that right off TV from John Hartford and Glenn Campbell. They did it, and I used to have a tape recorder, and I'd tape all these things off TV. Great performances. And I think right down to Courtney Johnson even did a banjo phrase that John had done. And it was very important that we do that phrase. John did. So we were influenced by people that were, breaking ground before us, and then we just kind of brought more rock and roll and maybe some, influences like the Allman Brothers and jazz rock and blues maybe.
And Little Feat maybe.
Totally Little Feat, influenced us because we, thanks to our friend John Starling up in Washington, D.C., when he made a record in 1976, and Lowell George of Little Feat was the producer, and so John Cowan and Curtis Birch and I played on that record, and we made the acquaintance of Lowell, and then over the years I've gotten to play some with Little Feat, and so it's it's amazing how it all intermingles.
It all gels, doesn't it?
It does.
I love your version, your treatment of Sailing Shoes on your very first solo album, which seems to get lost when people throw out your solo albums. That one seems to be left behind for some reason.
It's an old one. Well, and it's funny when I've played that because when Little Feat first did theirs is their version of Sailor Shoes. It's like
yeah.
lady in a turban. And then years later, I would hear it by Robert Palmer.
Yeah, I love that version.
And so his was more of that's the tempo Robert Palmer did it.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, when I've played it with Little Feat, they have said, Bill Payne said, let's do our version, and then we'll bust into Sam doing Robert Palmer's. So, which is accurate.
Now you played with Little Feat when they were, if I remember correctly, at Vanderbilt at the Surratt Center, long time ago.
I did.
Way back in the 70s. And
when Lowell was in the band.
Yeah, when Lowell was still in Lowell George was the founder, was still in the band. And
that particular night, Jay, if you remember, Lowell had laryngitis.
Didn't
sing one. So that was really wild, hearing Little Feat without Lowell singing a song, because I got to tell you, they were great.
Yeah, they were.
Now, you did miss Lowell singing, but the great songs that Bill Payne and Paul Barrere sang, So, yes, and I ended up playing.
That was a great.
The only
song
concert Lowell sang that night was "Willin'," and I ended up playing fiddle on it.
Yeah,
that's what happened there.
Well, you just mentioned the fiddle. A lot of people don't know this unless they grab Wikipedia these days or are super hardcore Sam Bush fans. You didn't start out with a mandolin in your hands. You were a junior champion fiddle player.
Well, I did start on mandolin at age 11, and then by 12 or 13, somewhere around 13, I took up fiddle. And of course, if my dad had had his way, I would be the staff fiddler on the Grand Ole Opry right now, which is a good job.
Yeah, good
gig.
But
I've been doing other things, and my dad, God, he wanted me to be a fiddler, and and I got enthused about it, and then was invited to go with some friends out to Idaho. I guess I was 14. To the it's called the Grand. What was it called? Anyway, it was a national championship, national fiddle contest in Weiser, Idaho. So I went the first year at age 14, came in 5th, and met the great part was I met a whole bunch of other geeky kids besides me that played the fiddle, because you would think around Kentucky there would be kids got a fiddle everywhere you look. Well, this wasn't the case, especially in the 60s when I was growing up. And so, ironically, I didn't meet another kid fiddler from Kentucky until I was 18, and he's from Louisville, named Hoot Hester, and Hoot was the staff fiddler on the Grand Ole Opry for many years. We became good pals. And so going to Idaho, that was the great part, meeting other kids that played the fiddle. And then I went the next 3 years and won it when I was 15, 16, 17. So that was called a national junior champion.
Sure.
And then, of course, when I was 18, you couldn't afford to go back to the contest anymore because it's time to start making a living. It was a great thing to get to be part of.
Had to get paid for playing the fiddle after that, didn't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, the winner of the junior division in Weiser, Idaho, won $50. So
there you go.
So I didn't really at the
time. Give me a bus ticket.
I was well aware of the fact that I was riding in other people's car and they were paying for the gas.
So you let's back up just a little bit. You mentioned the original lineup of Newgrass Revival. Courtney Johnson, of course, is no longer with us. Curtis Birch is still around. Dr. Dobro.
Dr. Dobro.
How's he doing?
He's doing all right. We haven't talked probably in about a year, but he's around Bowling Green.
Yeah.
And so Doctor's doing well. And that's, and then, of course, that was the part one of the band.
Yeah.
Part two featured Bela Fleck and Pat Flynn and John Cowan and I.
Yeah.
But John joined, when John Cowan joined in late 74.
Yeah.
That was kind of a way we got turned around. We finally got a voice. We finally got a lead singer.
And was that a conscious effort on your part to grab John Cowan, knowing that he also had kind of the same influences as the rock and roll R&B kind of influences?
Totally accidental.
It just worked out.
Well, Butch Robbins was our bass player for a year in Newgrass Revival, and when he left. Actually, the first person we asked to see if he wanted to come play electric bass with us was Ken Smith.
Really?
Yeah, and he was committed elsewhere.
Yeah.
And
he's doing a slick rock thing, maybe.
Well, he was rocking, but he was also working for the state of Kentucky.
I remember
as
that.
a payback for college education. The way if I'm remembering correctly,
he was doing solar panels and that kind of thing before it was cool.
Ken said he couldn't, but he said, but I know a guy in Louisville that I think he'd be the best. This is a great bass player. And so John Cowan was the guy he recommended, and John came down to Courtney's house in Barron County.
Yeah.
And it was a real culture shock for John, the city boy with hair down to his belt, rolling up and looking at us hillbillies. Yeah. But and to be honest, when we just heard him tuning up his bass, we were sold already. And then we played a few songs and asked him to join the band. Then he told us, "Oh, do you mind if I sing? I'm a singer too. Do you mind if I sing a little bit?
If I sing a little bit?"
And I literally said, gave it to Barney Fife. Yeah, go ahead. I'm the lead singer, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, he sang something. It was so beautiful. I mean, I just remember three of us were just going, "Oh, holy mackerel!" Yeah. And basically, I think I said something to the effect of, "Well, okay, I used to be the lead singer. Now you are, and." Let's get busy.
Well, was that first meeting back when you guys were on Flying Fish Records? Newgrass Revival was on Flying Fish. You had an album called Barron County, and it opened up, and you're sitting on the front porch.
Was
that Courtney's house?
That was mine.
Was that your house?
And it was out on Tobacco Road
in
Barron County.
Okay, all right.
That was the one I was renting for a long time.
Yeah.
But it worked. I mean, obviously, John was in the band 15 years from that point on. He and I were together.
Yeah. You guys broke up about 1989.
Our last job was 1989, New Year's Eve. So we didn't make it into We didn't make it into the 90s.
Not past 90. Yeah.
No, but it was a dream job we'd been trying to get on for years, which was opening for the Grateful Dead at Oakland Coliseum on their New Year's Eve show, the show in America.
Sure.
And we've been trying to get on that thing for a few years, and people that worked with the Dead and knew them, were trying to get us on that show for. And then when the Dead found out we were breaking up, then they called us and said, we want you to come.
And you about the same time, you did a couple of gigs with Garth Brooks. I think you were his backing band for maybe a couple appearances, maybe.
No, he there was a couple somewhere around 1988. I remember playing a club in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Garth opened for us. And then
Garth opened for you?
Yeah, and then another time, probably about 89, we played at a place called Horse Thief Canyon outside Tulsa, somewhere about an hour outside Tulsa.
Yeah,
and Garth formed a bluegrass band to open for us that night, and Bela and I have a little poster from the gig. Yeah, can't remember what he called the band, but I didn't really realize that was him till later. Years later, I was recording for him. He goes, "Do you remember?" He said, "I formed the bluegrass band that opened for you guys at Horse Thief Canyon." I went, "Well, I remembered us playing at the club, but I wasn't really aware that you were in the bluegrass band." So. I mean, obviously, Garth's been nice.
He's doing okay, though.
He's done okay for himself. I think he's going to be around.
Yeah. Well, you guys reunited, it says in my notes here that I'm just now looking at, in 1997 on a late night show with Conan O'Brien as the backup band for Garth Brooks.
Yeah, we did.
That's what it says right here.
We did, because Garth recorded one of Pat Flynn's songs called "Do What You Got to Do," and we went up and backed him on Conan O'Brien, and it was. The only time we've ever done anything like this where we literally got in a private plane, went to New York, went straight to the TV studio, did the taping, went straight back to the private plane, and went home. And the four members of Newgrass Revival. So we sat there, and we hadn't been together, and that was so. Garth was. He was always a big cheerleader for our band, and I think he thought he was going to get. I'm not sure if he thought he was going to get us back together or not, but I think he was just trying to. He was just trying to play the sound that he liked, and that was us playing it. So we really appreciate that.
Well, a lot of people always, of course, the Stones, are together. A lot of people try to get Led Zeppelin together. Are there people out there that are always asking, when is Newgrass getting back together?
Well, it's easy for the Stones to be together. They only have to see each other every 5 years.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And they make millions of dollars when they do it. And I'm a huge fan of theirs, and I applaud them all the way. I'm still reading Keith's book right now.
Exactly.
It's who knows if we would ever get back together. I mean, so far, Jay, I think we are so far the most successfully broken up band ever because we didn't get back together yet.
Yeah.
I mean, because gosh, it's so wild when you think about it that we haven't. It was 27 years ago we played our last job, and I was in the band 18 years. So, And I'm real happy with I mean, we're all doing stuff. John's in the Doobie Brothers.
Sure.
Bela Fleck has this.
The Fleck Tones and whatever else he's got going on.
Oh, yeah. He's doing some duets.
John has got his own band, too.
John's got his own band.
Pat Flynn, I think, is with Robert Earl Keen, I think. Is he still
doing
playing
that
with
now?
him?
Well,
as of last month, he was, because
Okay.
he was at the cave. What is it?
Oh, cool.
Cumberland Caverns. So.
Oh, yeah. So he's doing that.
Yeah.
Well, Pat he's session player. That's kind of what he does the most.
Great picker. And let me thank you for one thing. I won an Emmy in the Southeast region the first year that they had those in the Nashville or the Southeast region, and Newgrass Revival was on my tape. So thank you very much.
Hey, we could be in some small part.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of interesting because nobody in the truck, the TV guys, the directors and producers, they didn't know who you guys were, but the audio guy did. So I started calling the camera shots. They started, you started doing a mandolin thing, and they were on Pat. Mandolin. Yeah, and Bela, banjo. So thank you for my Emmy.
Hey, we thank you.
And it's collecting dust on the top of my closet now.
Directed it.
But let's get away from my Emmy. You have 3 Grammys. Is that right? Is the count right on that? 3 Grammys?
I do. There's 3 Grammys at our house.
Yeah, and are they in the top of the closet collecting dust, or have you have
No, they're on shelves.
Are they really?
Grammys is
that's a big thing.
Well, it is, and it's the first one was truly. They're all unexpected, really.
Yeah.
But the first one was with Emmylou Harris and the Nash Ramblers, which is what I went to work for 5 years for Emmy after the Newgrass Revival, and our Live at the Ryman, which we recently just did a reunion on May 2nd. It just aired on the Nashville PBS channel last week. Yeah. And so the first one was, of all things, we won the Grammy for country vocal
group and duo or something like that. Yeah,
vocal group. And so, which is great because Larry, our drummer, got one. And he doesn't sing.
He doesn't speak,
but he got a vocal Grammy. And then the next one, 3. And then the next one was okay. So after the Nash Ramblers stopped, I played basically. Bela invited me along with the Fleck Tones for a year. So I did the year with the Fleck Tones, and in that space, he recorded a live album over quite a few songs. And so his I can't remember what this. At any rate, it was pop instrumental performance. So we get a Grammy for that because
I think Bela Fleck has won a Grammy in every category listed. Except spoken word.
Exactly, and that's probably coming. And then the third one of all things was for the of playing on the record of the year.
Brother.
And when you're on the record of the year, even the Waterboy gets a trophy, and I got one.
Wow!
I played on one. Well, I played on quite a few songs. And learn. It's interesting being around watching people do music for films and stuff, which I haven't been around that much. Just how much music is recorded that's never used. It fascinates me. Yeah. So I played on a couple of different versions of "Man of Constant Sorrow," and that's Mike Compton playing the mandolin on the one that we know. Yeah. I think what did I played on a song? I think I'm on. He's in the jailhouse now. Like I say, there was a lot of recorded music that wasn't used. Yeah. So
Tim Blake Nelson.
But we certainly got, so it won record of the year. And that,
love it.
It's not lost on me that, it's like whenever something great happens for acoustic music in the world of recordings, it usually revolves around a movie. Yeah. It does. Well, for banjos, I mean, you got Bonnie and Clyde, Deliverance. Oh, yeah. Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou? Yeah. I mean, that right there, and they did more than anything else for them.
And, that happens a lot in movies because, the big country thing, Urban Cowboy, came out and country music all of a sudden was, back in. Yeah. Quote, traditional country music. And, Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou, got the bluegrass, Americana, roots music thing going on.
It did.
What do you think about Americana roots music? I mean, all of a sudden you've got a new genre you're in, and you're a Story Man CD was on the charts for quite a while. We still play it every day.
Well, I love the Americana, the whole trip. I mean, and that what's great about it's the yin and the yang that is so far-reaching. It covers everything from Bill Monroe to Bob Dylan through Bruce Springsteen, and it's giving us gives us a graceful way to age. It really does. I mean, because not every you're not going to sing about the same things you sang about when you were 17 and 20, so when I hear Americana music and I hear, for instance, the music that Emmylou's doing now as opposed to music she would have done 40 years ago. Yeah. Well, it's all great. Yeah. But she's I think it's Americana.
It's
what
Americana.
her and Rodney do. It's
Rodney's up for an album of the year.
Neil Young. I mean, it's so far encompassing, and yes, I'm really happy that because Americana, at this point, in my opinion, doesn't revolve around light shows and dance steps.
Yeah,
and so I think we find the most honest music there.
Yeah, we lost a great in Leon Russell just a few months back. You guys in Newgrass Revival toured with him. What was he like? How was he to tour with? Well, I saw you guys one time.
It was for 2 years. It was like being in a 50s rock band playing bluegrass instruments. I mean, it didn't happen every night, but there were some nights where you could see him in a mood that if he started bouncing up and down a little bit on his piano stool, that it's going to get good.
Yeah.
And
he's going to take you to church.
Well, it was like a Pentecostal church kind of. Yeah. That was an influence of a rave, of a show, of an excitement.
Yeah.
And he really liked us because we had two mandolins and there wasn't a trap drummer, there wasn't a set of drums. Mm-hmm. We had an African percussionist named Ambrose Campbell. Mm-hmm. So there was percussion, but we had two mandolins making the backbeat. My friend Bill Kenner was the other mandolin player. And Leon liked it because there's a thing, and it was sort of unspoken. It was never planned when he would go into a rave where the song starts speeding up and a little more excitement, and it just gets natural, a little faster and faster, and that does come from from church and Leon being influenced by Pentecostal music. And it would just be this exciting thing that happened. And so probably in the space of about 2 years, say. All shows were fun. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. It was always, John and I were the harmony singers, so it was our challenge for him not to be able to lose us. We were on every note with him, and he loved it. And so just getting that feeling that he would get, probably 50 times, there would be these. You feel like you're lifted up. Yeah. You really do.
Yeah.
So it was really amazing.
I remember seeing you guys at the Appreciation Fest way back in the late 70s.
right.
When you guys were touring with Leon. It was an awesome show, outdoor show at Beach Bend Park.
For sure.
So that was great. Let me go back even further. Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass music. He was the king. He started it all. Newgrass is a sub-genre, if you will,
it is,
of bluegrass music. You met Bill Monroe many, many times. What did he tell you the first time you met him?
Well, the first time I wouldn't remember. I think I know where you're going with this, and
I've got it here on paper.
Well, it was I first saw Bill play in person probably in '64 at the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah.
And then I started going to festivals, and I met a young guitar player with him in '64 that I just saw at the Grand Targhee Bluegrass Festival where we just were. We're still pals. We've been pals for life. Peter Rowan. I met Peter Rowan when I was. He thinks I was 12 when we met. I thought it was more like 13 or 14. But at any rate, and so now cut to the I'd been getting to go around to shows and meeting the guys in the band, and so it's probably about '68. Somewhere in there, Byron Berline was playing it might have even been before that, though. Byron Berline was playing the fiddle with him, and Byron had took me under his wing and was helping me learn to play the fiddle and mandolin. And so we were up at Bean Blossom, Indiana, and it was between their shows. It was they do Brown County Jamboree on Sunday afternoon, have a 3:00 matinee, 7:00 evening performance. So we saw this 3:00, and so Roland Dwight was playing guitar with Bill, but he had his good mandolin there. I'd never played one as good as Roland's before, so I was playing Roland's mandolin. Got in a jam session. It was Roland on guitar, Byron Berline on fiddle, Vic Jordan on the banjo, and we were playing, jamming. And I didn't know Bill was standing behind me listening to this. I always did feel like mandolin was my best instrument, and so. He was standing there, and basically it was getting time for the guys to start getting ready for the evening performance. And all of a sudden he goes, "Let boys, let's get ready now." And he looked at me, and I'm holding Roland's mandolin, and he says, "Now I want you to stay with that fiddle. I want you to stay on that fiddle. We ain't got enough good young fiddlers coming up now."
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, mandolin is
so,
me.
So how long did you stick with the fiddle after that?
I'm still playing it.
Yeah, well,
Well, I'm still playing it, but I mean, I, if anything, I guess it's a little bit of self-flattery. I'd like to think Bill maybe wanted me to, hopefully play fiddle in his band someday. Maybe that's what I was hoping. Maybe that's what he had in mind. But who knows, But I know Bill Monroe loved fiddle music, and he loved fiddlers, and he listened to fiddlers. He didn't listen to other mandolin players. Yeah.
You have a show coming up in Bowling Green, Kentucky, your hometown here, very, very soon, Saturday, September the 9th at Skypack.
We do.
Is it the whole band? Is it just you?
No, it's the whole band.
Well, see, it just says Sam Bush. It doesn't say Sam Bush Band.
Well, it's the band. It's the band. It's the band.
All right.
And we've got Chris Brown and his drums of renown. I say that nobody knows where that comes from.
I remember that.
And where did that come
Les
from?
Brown.
It comes from Les Brown. Were they on the Dean Martin show?
They were.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Les Brown but anyway, Chris Brown and his drums of renown.
And Scott Vestal just got a
Scotty
Vestal big.
It's a banjo award.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
Well, it's a bluegrass band.
Steve Martin thing, right?
We call it the Steve Martin Award. I don't know the exact name of it, but it's a group of banjo pickers that got together a few years ago, and spearheaded by Steve Martin. And it's a cash prize. It's just a nice thing to be recognized by It's voted on by banjo players only. And there's, I think, a board of directors, so I guess Scott will join the board now. Mm-hmm. But he long deserves it. He is such an underrated, great banjo picker, and hopefully the word's getting out. And but Scott won that award. Todd Parks plays the bass with us. And good old Stephen Mogen on guitar.
Yeah, there you go. And that's coming up Saturday, September 9th. I believe tickets are still available.
Probably are. But Scott, we've gotten to play a Skypack one before, and that's such a beautiful arena for Bowling Green to have. Yeah. It really is.
I remember back when it was the Capitol Arts Center back in the old days.
Right.
And it's really a nice place to pick and grin. Do you have time for one more? I know Sam is as gracious with a lot of his time. I had to go grab him off the interstate as he's heading up north to do a session. With a new up-and-coming band up in, I guess, Franklin or Bowling Green, Kentucky.
We're going to Franklin for the session.
Franklin for the session? Okay, all right. Do you have time for one more? Sam Bush Live. Sam Bush live right here on Americana Country WSGI. Thanks again, Sam Bush, for stopping.